Hello, everyone. My name is Wais Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. Now, we are
Mm.
live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, please leave a rating. Now, if you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Natalie Makoni, a financial director who focuses on financial planning and analysis and record to report or R2R, which we're going to jump into later. She's a chartered accountant via the ACCA and also holds an MBA designation. Natalie, thanks so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Finally, I've made it on the show, right?
Fine, fine, it's about time. But let's jump straight into the meat of it. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Natalie Makoni? Give us the backstory.
Okay, so now that I'm a new mom, I normally lead with that. I'm a mom to a baby boy. He's a toddler now, he's about 16 months. I have studied extensively in finance and have occupied different roles in finance in different industries, from FMCG, also cinema chain, then also went back into facilities management. So my experience is very wide and diverse when it comes to, to that sense. And then, like you mentioned, have an MBA from Gibbs. Shout out to Gibbs alumni. Yeah, so pretty much that's me. I'm loving motherhood. Did it much later. If I could go back, maybe I'd have been a mom at a younger age. But nonetheless, here we are. And also, I'm a mom to a husky. I'm a pet lover. I have a husky who keeps us busy, and we always go on runs together. So that's me. I love to cook as well and bake.
Okay, that gives us a good start. But let's go in. I mean, you mentioned briefly, but I see you chose the ACCA route over like the SAICA route as an example. Now, in
Yeah,
South Africa, the vast majority of people generally go the SAICA route. So,
yeah.
why did you choose to go the ACCA route?
Look, I think that's a great question, right? Because most of the times I'm asked, why ACCA, why CIMA, why SAICA? I mean, they're different professional designations. But I think at that time when I was studying, when I was concluding my studies, I was just more exposed to people who had done ACCA. And I just felt like it would have been a good balance for me at that stage doing ACCA while I was doing my articles. And then I just went for it and then I just excelled from there on. And then I never looked back. And now here I am. I'm a deputy chair of the ACCA panel in Southern Africa. So from
Mm,
that respect, ACCA has rewarded my career, even the different positions that I occupied. I managed to even work in different markets. For example, I've worked in Botswana, and that was all through ACCA. So I think it just depends on what was, at my disposal, and then I just ran with it and never looked back.
okay, okay. And because South Africa is kind of focused on the wine, can you tell us a little bit more about the ACCA route? ACCA route, like what does it entail?
So ACCA is more than 100 years old, and if my memory serves me right, I think we must have celebrated 120 years in the last couple of days. So it's an organization that has been there for a very long time. What's different about it, as opposed to Psycho Route, you do board exams. ACCA, you don't have board exams, but you have strategic papers. But the fundamentals, the principles are more or less the same, and the two qualifications have the same. The charter, that seal, that the qualifications both carry. So I think it just depends, like I said, what's at your disposal and what you want the qualification to do for you, right? And what you can also do once you have the qualification, because it's a two-way street for it to open doors for you. You need to put in the work, and then you also need to get the qualification.
And you mentioned they don't do a board exam; they do something. Can you elaborate a little bit on what those
So
exams are like?
they're different. Okay, so they're different strategic papers, but for anybody who's watching, you're more than welcome to go to the ACCA website. So there are different strategic papers, either auditing, tax, or financial planning. And what I would want to highlight is now ACCA is in a partnership with ERBA, the auditor regulatory body, where you can also now be a registered auditor through ERBA, and you can also review financial statements and sign off. So more information is on the website ACCA Global. There is a link on the website if you want to understand what's the urban route and how you can take that if audit is your interest, and how you can advance your profession from there on.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Let's switch over a little bit and talk about your MBA. Why did you
Mm.
decide on an MBA and how has it impacted your life?
I think for me, it's because, when I concluded my studies, I occupied senior roles early on in my career, right? So, finance manager, after senior finance manager, group finance manager. And I just felt like something was missing from a business perspective, right? And then in it, I felt hungry. And also, the people that I'd seen that were successful at that time had the MBA title. And then I did my homework, and then I landed up at Gibbs, and then I decided to actually study it full time because I wanted to immerse myself in the full MBA experience. And then, did my postgrad first, and then went into the MBA, and then thereafter, I concluded my studies and I graduated. I actually majored in finance and investments because at that stage I was leaning towards hedge fund, private equity. I think you were just trying to see, obviously you have a passion, but you're also trying to see, okay, where's the wind gonna take me? Which subjects will I excel in the most? So what the MBA did for me is thereafter I did some work with SAFCA where I helped them with their research. SAFCA is a regulatory body for the Private Equity Association, Venture Capital Association here in South Africa. I helped them with their research where they're looking to implement a fund manager program, in terms of transformation and to have more and upcoming Black, female, male fund managers in the industry. And while I was doing that, obviously I networked, and then the MBA further opened opportunities for me because I managed to go to Botswana, and then I became a CEO of finance for a cinema chain, did a lot of work there. And then I came back to SA, and then I became an FD, and I never looked back from there on.
Okay. For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end, so please add your questions to the comment section now so that we don't miss them. So Natalie, I noticed on your profile on LinkedIn, it shows a few prominent acronyms, FP&A and R2R. Now, I've heard of FP&A, but to be honest with you, I've never actually heard of R2R. So for the audience, can you please explain what each acronym means and the work that you do around it? Because I had to Google it first to make sure that I understood it.
FP&A, I think that's straightforward financial planning and analysis, right? That includes your forecasting, your budgeting, your reporting, and all of that. R2R is records to reporting, which in our market, I'll probably say is your FC component. That's your financial control. You can also have a treasury component. You can have your asset management. So anything in terms of, the whole accounting function is just an acronym to say record to reporting, because you record the transactions and then you report them in the financial statements.
Okay. Okay.
Have I answered you? Do you
Yes, you
now?
have. You have.
You,
It's just different jargon that they don't normally use or that I haven't heard, and I'm assuming a lot of people haven't heard either.
Look, I'm on your page. I mean, every single day I always ask, people use different acronyms, and I'm like, what do they mean? Like, the other day I had BAU, and I'm like, a friend of mine was like, is that behavior analysis unit? I'm like, it's actually business as
Business as
usual.
usual. Yeah, yeah. I
So
remember.
it
I
just depends.
remember bumping into that one as well. It's worse if you work for a property company, then it's a mess. Then you have to learn them all. But yeah, I understand. I
Yeah.
understand. You touched on your stint in Botswana, but
Mm,
I've noticed you worked quite a few roles with quite a few different types of roles in your career, at least. So you worked as a CFO or a CEO and then a CFO.
yeah.
What did you find? Because a lot of accountants, I mean, we have this accounting mindset. What did you find the most challenging about your period as a CEO?
I think the people aspect, right? I think in any role, for you to be successful, you need to harness the people aspect. You need to lead. You need to, because you only achieve results through a team. So challenging and exciting, I would use those both words. Just dealing with people, different value systems, different ways of thinking, and trying to get that culture right so you can actually get results. I found that to be both challenging and exciting at the same time. And I think having gone through that experience enabled me to take on other future roles, because in anything, I always say you need the people first. Results will come, but you need to have the right team on the bus.
Okay, so it's more about the people, less about numbers, for lack of a better word.
For
Okay.
me, the technical is even when I hire technical, I can teach you how to do a model. Technical for me is straightforward, but I hire for the attitude, right? The people element. If you have the right attitude, your heart is in the right place, you can learn how to do anything.
So you are a perfect case study of a CEO, an accountant who became a CEO and who got over that little, I guess, thinking of the finances or thinking from a finance perspective. So
Yeah.
let's say there's someone out there who's sitting in finance, but who wants to run a company in the long run.
Mm,
And they don't want to come from the finance perspective, but that's all they have. What
mm.
advice do you have for them to transition into that operational or executive or sales leader even, and move away from the finance
Look, I
mindset?
think that's a good question. What I'm finding is, when we were training, you'll have specialists, right? For example, you have doctors who have gone on to be CEOs of, hospitals and all of that. They're not even practicing.
Yes, yes.
I think it's a good question in the sense that I think, first of all, you need to have the right attitude. If you know, okay, I want to venture into business, now there's so many tools on the internet. You can read up, there are even books disposal, just so you can see, okay, what do I need? You have those cheat books that say 101 in business, all those things. I think number one, practice it, try and get a role where you can actually be immersed in not just in finance, but also exposure to the operational part, and also just read around and research, and maybe even have a mentor who has done both, whom you can actually talk to, learn from. If you have issues or if you're struggling with somebody, you have somebody who can actually coach you along the way. So I think for me, those three tools will definitely help you to make that difference or to make that move in your career. As hard as it may be, it's possible.
Definitely. And one more thing that I noticed is I hear you are starting a new venture through
Mm.
corporate. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So, True Corporate was born by myself and Devin. So it's True Corporate by Dev and Nat. We just felt like, okay, work can be so serious. So is life, right? It can be so serious, and we just felt like, we just want an outlet where we just laugh and talk about the funny things that happen at work. For example, what was in the canteen today? Oh, how do you manage up? Or, for example, corporate buzzwords. We were talking about acronyms, right? And you and I were like, oh my gosh, there's just a lot. So these are some of the topics that we discussed, and we just wanted to have a relaxed environment where we talk about corporate and how you can navigate corporate, because corporate is difficult, it's challenging, that type of a thing. And then that's led to the birth of True Corporate, and hence True Corporate. Let's talk about stuff that that people don't really talk about, that happens in the workplace. I can take an example. One of our viewers actually, wrote us an email about how they'd taken their boss's chair because they have a sore back. Now they don't want to confess that they're the one that took the chair. And they're like, now my boss is walking around in the office asking for the chair. How do I go about it? So these are some of the topics that we talk about. Or you're having lunch and then one of your workmates comes with their lunch, and then they open their lunch, and then there's a smell because of whatever that they're eating, whether it's garlic or anything like that. How do you approach it, that type of a thing. So it's very much laid back, casual. We just want to engage and make our viewers laugh along the way.
That sounds exciting. I don't see anything from coming in from the audience, so that means you've probably answered all the questions that they need. Is there any last few things from you, or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
I think, how you were asking me about how can you venture from finance into business. I think the one thing I always say is try it. Just like we tried with the podcast, you'll never know. Be brave enough, be bold, show up, dress up, try it, and the rest will take care of itself.
Be brave enough. I think that's a great way to end. The show has been live on YouTube and should be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Natalie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of